All right, we are live.
Nice.
Today we have one of my very, very close friends, an extremely special guest, if I might add.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think this is the third episode, Muzz. This is Muzz, by the way.
Hey, everyone.
I think because I recorded two other ones, but I'm not going to put them out because like the audio got messed up or something on it. So I believe for the viewers, this is going to be number 3, but yeah, introduce yourself real quick, and then just nothing crazy, but just I guess tell them what you do currently. Like, how would you describe your current job? Because I think that's pretty interesting. And then obviously, like, we'll dive into the stuff that me and you have done together.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. Yeah, I'm excited to be on the podcast.
I'm looking forward
to this. Yeah, thank you.
And welcome to Texas, too.
Hey, yeah, I appreciate it. You know, I was so dedicated. I came down here just for
I know.
this.
I always fly my guests out.
Hey, I appreciate it. Yeah, I can't, stop smiling here. I smile a lot in general though, but this is a first for me being on a podcast. So
welcome to the show.
I'm excited to see how it goes. Clay's always been good about pushing me to try new things. So
yeah.
This is another thing I can check off.
This is what it's all about. And we brought you to Austin, Texas. I got you doing workouts with me.
That is true.
Well, except for today, I kind of messed that one up. But
I still went though,
that's true. There. Muzz is going to be you're going to be extremely consistent over the next 30 days.
Yes.
We're going to go to Big Bend.
Yep.
We're going to go to Mount Bunnell,
yep.
Do some hiking, things like that. But yeah, just let them, actually just pretend like you're explaining it to me, because sometimes I get confused. Like, in terms of what you do for Facebook. So you work at Facebook now, but what exactly do you do for them?
Yeah. So I started at Facebook in May of last year. So it's been a little over 6 months. And in my role, it's a product development specialist, which means that in the product life cycle, I work for Oculus, which is like the virtual reality part of Facebook. And so when we have a new feature that's going to be released or a new product we're working on, we first will test it out internally with our employees.
Right.
And that's a concept called dog fooding, which comes from the term like you should eat your own dog food, like test out something yourself before giving it to our users.
Customers, yeah.
And so my role is I keep a pulse on how the features are being perceived from the dog fooding that we do. And we do a lot of data analysis, a lot of insights and reporting on that. And then based off of what we see, then we can make recommendations to product teams and engineering teams and say, this is something you should focus on. This is a feature we should release. It shows a lot of promise. It's looking really solid. Or we can say, we think this is an idea you should scrap. Our internal users don't like it, which means it's probably not going to have good product market fit when we actually release it to the public. So like in a nutshell, using internal signal to predict future success of
a certain
features.
Product.
Yep.
Okay, so you're working on the VR team. So you're inside of Oculus, really, which is owned by Facebook.
Yep.
And you're not, so is your role have anything to do with engineering, or are you strictly on the product side and you take what they do and you basically say, hey, work on this, or hey, the user feedback is such and such, you guys need to change this? Do you do anything engineering wise?
No. So currently I don't do any, I don't write code in my role.
Okay.
But that being said, one of the important aspects of the role is being comfortable with understanding software development processes and how it works, because a lot of times the conversations you'll have with engineers will wind up being about, is this feasible to code? Is this feasible to produce from an engineering standpoint? And you have to understand those things, because we don't want to, give recommendations to an engineering team that's just totally not possible with our tech stack, with their bandwidth, with things like that. And so like previous to Facebook, I was working at Huntington doing like cybersecurity. And then previous to that, I was at Tesla doing like a software development internship. So I feel like those experiences like help me get that technical understanding of software development so that I can have good conversations in this role.
Got it. Now, in terms of coding and that side of the spectrum, because I know you still use certain tools to collect the data. So what languages do you understand like coding from? Because obviously we worked on projects together, and I know you know a fair amount about that. But which like languages do you use to code, or like, I guess, are you familiar with?
Yeah. So for me personally, and I think a lot of people who are looking to get into software development, even if they don't want to make a career out of it, if they're just kind of looking to develop that skill set to broaden their horizon, two great languages to be aware of are Python and SQL. Now, SQL, some would say, isn't like a traditional programming language. It's very different. It's basically just used for data analysis purposes. So data is stored in large tables, and SQL allows you to search for the specific data you want from those tables. And so it's not super versatile in the sense that it's purely for data analysis. But that being said, it's super valuable in any business setting because everyone needs to analyze data. And then Python, on the flip side, is a traditional, what's called object-oriented programming language, which is more like you can, create, full stack applications with it. Which versus just data analysis, what I'm saying is you can actually make full programs that can perform functions that you need, all sorts of
like
functions.
apps and different things.
Yeah,
like that.
Exactly. Like a lot of websites, their back end is on Python. Now you can even make certain front ends with Python, but it also can do really, really powerful stuff with data analysis in terms of advanced techniques like machine learning and AI. So Python's really versatile. That's the other one I'm pretty familiar with. And the other reason I recommended it as like a good one to pick up is it's not very, its syntax, which is basically like, the rules of the language are not very complex.
Not complex.
So for a beginner, you can pick it up pretty quick.
Nice. Okay. So we have obviously worked on a number of projects together. One of the main ones being Pouch. Really, there's kind of two phases of Pouch. The early days where we tried an idea related to like low energy Bluetooth that didn't work out. And then the later days post college where we ended up going and we created an app that was really for dietitians and people in the fitness realm to create customized and automated diet plans for people. What were you using on the back end of that? Because obviously I built the front end, you built the back end, and we paired them together. You used Python for the back end coding on that. Okay.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
So that was like actually a pretty cool project for us because so typically like for folks who aren't as like familiar with like the architecture of a website, you have the front end, which is what the users are seeing. And
the web interface, the way it looks.
And then you have the back end, which is doing a lot of like the behind the scenes functionality and, storage and transmission of data, things like that. And so I am not a front end developer by trade. I mean,
me either.
But what was awesome about the project, and I think kind of showed, some ingenuity on our part. And what was you did the front end using WordPress, which is like really widely used. I forget what the statistic is, but I want to say it's almost over a fifth of all websites on the internet use WordPress. And so you did an awesome job, like learned that super, super fast, which like still I always find like really, really incredible. And then we, to make the back end then, because WordPress, that's where it gets a little tricky is getting like they have a lot of great plugins, but when you have specific backend functionality, it gets tough.
That was the biggest trouble for us.
Exactly. So what I did is I wrote, there's a tool called Flask, which is a web engine that's coded, like you write the code in Python,
Right.
and it allows you to basically make API endpoints really easily. And to simplify this, basically, like rather than doing our backend on using WordPress plugins, we had a whole custom API we built that was interfacing with our WordPress front end, which it was pretty cool. Yeah.
So how would you describe our success in terms of I've actually never asked you this.
Yeah.
Like we've been working as business partners for like, God, I don't even know how many years. Probably
at least
6
like,
or 4 or 5. I don't know. Since the beginning of college, really, when we were trying to, get in the startup realm, going to all the startup meetups and ideas and stuff. But really, Pouch was the first one where we actually had any like level of product that we could sell.
Yeah.
So we had this basic app. What would you describe the level of success we had with it, like in terms of the project overall? Because we're currently not really pursuing it anymore.
Yeah.
It still kind of runs in the back end. We have a couple people that use the software.
Like it's still profitable. Currently.
With the software side for sure. But like at any rate, what would you describe our level of success with Pouch in terms of I guess what we created from it?
Yeah, it's a great question. Success is always such a tough thing to define because there's so many different methods of evaluating.
This is why I was curious what. Because obviously from a monetary perspective, we did not. If the company was successful, we would still be running it like
for sure
full time, if you will.
So
from a monetary perspective, it was not a success.
Yeah. Even that though, I would say so. Every good metric is relative, right? Like if I arbitrarily said like, hey, if you make X amount of money, it was a success. It really isn't a valuable metric because you need to compare it to something to see where you stand. So for us, if you look at the fact that we had never run a profitable business, the fact that we had even $1 of
that's
revenue,
true. That's true.
Some ways, especially like, given the fact that we both had other like, at one point we both had full-time jobs. And then you started a like brand new venture and like you're running like a totally different business. And I mean the fact that we got it to profitability despite those constraints, I think it's worth giving ourselves a little bit of a pat on the back.
It was cool for sure. Like the amount of like knowledge that we gained from just doing it was crazy. Like
exactly. And then that's the other side of the coin is like life is so much about experiences versus like dollars and cents. And just the amount of stuff we learned in terms of like, okay, how do we build an app using like the most efficient means possible? Like how we talked about WordPress plus our Python, API. Like how do we quickly do this and put something together? How do we find like product market fit? How do we, reach out to customers? How do we close deals? Those are all things like we would have never learned. So I think to simply answer your question, I would say it was a success in terms of the learning and how far it brought us. But we can set the bar a little higher for monetary success and
for the next one, for the next go around, we need a higher bar for the monetary success. But so like the main thing for me after like kind of like looking back on the project is it's like first of all, we didn't spend any money at all to build the thing. We both of us were like, oh, we have this idea. I'm already kind of doing it for some of my clients. I was doing fitness stuff at the time. I was like, people keep asking me for these diet plans. I don't really know how to make them look pretty. I know how to do the calculations. I know the formulas. I can give you the formulas, but I don't know how to make it look good. I handed it to you. You kind of made this thing that spit PDFs out using these formulas. And then we kind of just ran from there. But the really interesting thing is like, there's so much value in like learning from other people, and like you can go look at and get a mentor, or you can pay for a course and learn how to code, or you can go, learn from somebody how to build a website. The weird thing about what we did is we didn't ask anybody any questions at all.
Yeah.
And we just went totally off our own intuition to build the entire app. And then also to get customers. Like, I hadn't read a single sales book. I hadn't talked to a single person about sales. Like, I didn't do any of the things that you probably should do, but I almost feel like I learned more because we didn't have any preconceived knowledge on how to run a business.
Yeah.
Like, that amount of knowledge I gained was exponential to the amount that I've gained now.
Yeah.
Because I read so much more now and I listen to so many things. So nothing really surprises me as much as when I didn't know anything and I never asked any questions. We just did the thing.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. Yeah. Like, I think both of us have that mentality with things in general is like, you know, we have like growth mindset, right? Where it's like, if I dive into this, I feel like I can learn everything I need to. And it's a good thing to have. I think one thing we learned is like, balancing that with the most efficient route to success. So what I mean by that is like, yeah, maybe you can learn everything on your own, but it's a lot faster to you know, utilize other sources of knowledge, ask people for help and things like that. But it's funny, like, quick, you know, like how they tell you like there's like, if you're ever applying for a job and, you know, you hear that question, it's like, what's your biggest weakness? You know, it's always like a weird one to answer. One time
my biggest weakness is I'm too hardworking.
That's sometimes what
I hate, like, everyone tries to use the some.
Well, this is my tip that I actually heard someone else mention, and I thought it was interesting because it really does apply to a lot of people. It's like, a lot of people, that is their biggest weakness, is wanting to control everything and wanting to, they can't delegate. And the good thing about answering the question in that way is, on one hand, it shows like you're the type of person who, you are hardworking and you want to control things because you just, you know,
you want it done right.
You want it done right. But it's your weakness because you also have to find the balance of being a good delegator, being able to find the fastest means to accomplishing a goal. So it's like it's a pretty good.
Yeah. Sarah Blakely, she's the founder of Spanx. She was telling a story about how she's a billionaire. She was telling a story about how, like, you know, Spanx got started and stuff. And like, the thing that stood out the most was when she was talking about like not knowing anything about business or products or anything. She just went based on like what her intuition was.
Yeah.
And it made her so different from everybody else, because everybody else was following the business plans and the things that, you know, you're supposed to do in business. And she was just going straight off of like, if nobody on the planet existed and she was like, all right, what do I think's the best thing to do? She was just going off that. And by like taking so much action, you end up finding yourself in the right spot. Like, the biggest difference in what we would do, and we've talked about this before, like now versus I guess then when we were working on it, is just take more action. Like we built this app and we built the entire company in like 2 days, technically. Like, if you really look back and like, okay, we messed around for like a month, like coming up with ideas and like all that. But in order to build the actual app, it took literally 2 days of us just sitting in Starbucks.
No, I still remember, because I was driving. I got a call from you, and then you were like, hey, do you have any ideas about how to automate, you know, like PDFs? I want to make some like custom branded ones. And I was just interested in like seeing, is there a way to do this more efficiently? And I think it was like a day later, so we got together. I had a little demo for you. It was not nearly close to completion, but it was like we made strides.
Well, that was the first. So even if, let's say you count that as a day, there was those 2 other days where like I actually built the website and then we actually put everything together. It was probably like 3 days of work. Which is crazy, because like that's, you know, that was like one little burst of action that we, you know, worked on this company for like a year because of that little burst of action. So I almost feel like, I mean, if we really put our mind to it and just continued that level of action, we would have, you know, obviously taken off. But one thing we definitely lacked in was one, like having the ability to add new features and do all, like, that was like a real big pain for us.
And
like,
I think it goes back to like at a certain point being comfortable with the idea of we have to either pay for, you know, help or just like network with more people or bring things, just realizing we can't accomplish this in a silo just among us two. And I think that lesson like will be huge going forward, just because like you said, you can scale a lot more easily.
Yeah, we would have had to, I mean, because here's the thing, like we're both working full time. So if either you have to learn how to do everything, which is what we did at first, we were just kind of guessing. But then past a certain point, you either start to burn out or you're like, okay, I don't think I have time to learn how to be a full-blown engineer. So at that point, what you have to end up doing is leveraging what you are good at, which is working your full-time job to make money. Take that money, save it, put it into the business. And that's the risk you got to take. Like if you're in that situation, you either have to risk your money or you have to risk your time. And usually you're already risking your time a fair amount or giving your time a fair amount. So like one thing we started to do that. We started to put up a little bit of money like towards the middle part. But what would you say like is the biggest lesson that you took away from the 2 years really that we worked on it?
I think you touched on it before, but just constantly taking action and trying new things, I think is probably the biggest lesson. Just because we found so many times, and this is like probably a tough thing that for me to overcome is always like, I'm a big believer in planning. Like I like to think things through and, you know, think of like, what are our contingency plans? What could go wrong? How do we overcome those? But like, what I learned is like, you can plan thoroughly 100%, but you're going to learn something new along the way. And it's a lot
messes the plan up.
Exactly. So it's much better to be more agile and ready to like just go with the flow, respond to things, have more of a just-in-time mentality when it comes to like, you know, doing things. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway.
I for me, I want to say it would be, I feel like we learned a lot about the importance of talking to our customers. Like from the sales part, at least for me, because I was taking a lot of those calls at the time, we were just straight up reaching out to people, schools, universities, and basically trying to have calls with them and seeing if this is something they need. And the two biggest issues were we weren't really talking to the right people, or they didn't really have a need for it, or we couldn't portray what we could offer well enough. And we always kept trying to pivot our idea to fit what they wanted, which is a good thing. But at the same time, we started pivoting everything we were doing. We never found the right product market fit. So like my biggest takeaway was I was like, wow, like it matters so much to have the right product, which sounds really, really simple. But like that product market fit, like knowing like, oh, this type of human being actually likes and needs this service.
For sure.
And we started to get that a little on the software side, but it was so few and far between because we couldn't get enough people to try it. So for me, it was those sales calls that we took.
Yeah, exactly. Like I recently have gotten like really into like reading about like UX research, which is like learning about your users and, you know, how they're experiencing the product. And I think, like you said, that was like a big takeaway that helped us is just understanding our customer better. And a good tip for that, you know, I've learned like at, you know, a lot of these tech companies, what they'll do is like, you've got to develop a persona, like maybe even multiple, but who is your ideal customer? And you should really treat it like, don't make that a lifeless person. Don't just say our ideal customer is a personal trainer who is in this age group and, you know, things like that. Give them a name, give them like, put a picture up of them. And every time you have a decision to make, a product decision, you should focus on satisfying that customer because there's definitely more people like them.
Right.
And your idea isn't to satisfy every person, which is a problem we got into of like all, you know, customers are, unique in their own way. And if you try and solve everyone's problem, that's never going to happen. So focus on one person. There's got to be others out there like them. Make them your ideal customer. Give them a name. Give them a face. Treat them with the respect they deserve.
Yeah.
And then it really helps guide every one of your product decisions.
Yeah. And to that point, like we were trying way too hard. Like we had the wrong product, but we were trying so hard to force it into the market that we were willing to bend it, cut it in half, like cut the price in half, cut it in third. Like we were willing to do everything for the consumer to just try to get them to say yes to a sale.
Exactly.
And that's such a terrible place to be in because it was so needy feeling. Looking back on it, I was like, oh my gosh, we had no framing at all because at that time, we really wanted to get sales and just try to make something work. It ended up working here and there, but it was it was almost like pointless because the people weren't really getting what they wanted and we weren't really delivering the thing that we knew we could do the best, which was the software. And it turned into something a little different. But our business projects aside, I guess what would you tell if I was trying to get a job at, because you're still full-time employee, right?
Yep.
Only other side project right now was Pouch, and then obviously the tiny homes thing that we're working on for a little bit. But if I'm coming out of college and I want to get one of the big tech jobs like Google, Facebook, Apple, Tesla, one of those major companies, what would you do? Like, how do you get the job? Because obviously, they're super hard to get and they're super competitive, but you've been able to do it twice now. What would you tell people if you were sitting there and you're like, all right, do these 3 things to get this job?
Yeah. The first thing I'll say is, very first thing is always try, never right off the bat. Sometimes if that is a desire of yours to work at one of these big tech companies, you can totally do it. Never feel discouraged. And even for me, I openly and proudly share that it took 2 rejections from Facebook before I finally got in.
That's not that many. There's a lot of people out there that have 10 rejections from this company or 30 or
I definitely feel fortunate in that sense, but it's the type of thing where I don't think I'm special by any means. I don't think anyone that works there is special. I think it's a lot of hard work and having the desire to do it. And so that's kind of the first thing, is really have the conviction behind it and then work hard. So now for the specifics, if you're a software engineer, you've got to starting right now, you need to start practicing your coding interview questions. There's a lot of good websites out there Leet Code, for example, where they have coding interview questions. Do those nonstop, as if there's no other aspect to getting into these companies. Just focus on those, because essentially in the technical interview, that's what they're going to ask you to do. They're going to ask you to write code. Before you even make it for the on-site interview, they're going to evaluate your coding skills. And if you do enough questions, A, you become better at them, but B, sometimes you might even see the same question.
Or you just recognize that pattern.
Exactly, yeah. So if you're a software engineer, definitely that's the first thing you got to do. Any technical role, focus on nailing the interview. And there's a lot of good books too, Cracking the Coding Interview is a really good one. But then in general, these companies obviously hire for all sorts of roles. As I mentioned, I'm not even coding in my current one. And so this would apply to software engineering, but also non-engineering roles, is network to try and find someone who can refer you. So a lot of times what happens is you will send in your application, there's thousands of others, and you'll never hear back. It's really unfortunate, but that's just kind of how the way things go. But if you find someone who can refer you, it pretty much guarantees your resume will be at least looked at by a recruiter. And what I always say,
it bypasses that manual or that automated process that just spits all the,
Exactly. It ensures a human being is going to take a look. And from that point, I always tell people, like, you could have a director at the company refer, you could have like someone high up, but it all comes down at that point to you and the interview process. It's very objective. So depending on who refers you, it doesn't really make a difference at that point. It's kind of like they got you the interview. Now it's up to you to nail that interview.
So would you say then the best strategy would be go after the low hanging fruits, like the people like that are maybe a year out of college, 2 years out of college that work there? Because you're saying there's no weight differential between a director, a president of the company versus, an entry level guy. It's just going to bypass the automations.
That's a great point about, in terms of who you reach out to, like if you can more easily get in touch with someone working at the company who's newer. And here's a huge tip, like leverage the alumni from your university. Like we're really fortunate since we both graduated from Ohio State, like a huge alumni network. And like they're at, Buckeyes are at every single company. So like you'll always find someone, but even if that's not the case for you, like try your best to find alumni in your industry, reach out to them. Don't like even necessarily say, obviously, like, hey, I'm reaching out for a referral. You would, say, hey, I graduated from OSU. I'm really interested in, pursuing the same career path you did. X, Y, and Z is my target company, Tesla, Apple, Facebook, whatever it is. Could you tell me a little bit about how you got there? Then once you're on the call, ask them for their advice. If it's going well, maybe they'll offer to refer you, or when you ask for tips, it could be something that comes up. But
So one thing I would say is that process of like, hey, getting someone to refer you, it's going to come down to if the person likes you or not.
Yeah.
And like, if you're reaching out totally cold from like a sales perspective, everyone always is like, add value to them. So obviously adding value is great, but it's really hard to add value to someone that you don't know what's valuable to them. So what I would say in terms of the first touch point to that person, a good idea of what we do, like from kind of a sales perspective or an outreach perspective, we always try to, when we reach out to people, we'll send like a video message and we'll just try to get the person interested in who we are as a person by relating to stuff that, we've done our research on them. We figure out what they like outside of work. And we always try to pair our life stories and then pull in something that they're actually passionate about. So before we talk about anything work related, we just want to build a friendship or a relationship that's around something that's a mutual passion between two people. So if you can find anything that's like passionate related to in this referral strategy, I think that's huge, because if the person is like, oh, this is a real person, this isn't just someone reaching out to get something from me, they actually could be a valuable piece of my life, or, they're interested in the same things I'm interested in. I think that is super huge, because then, like you said, once you do get on the call, then, you could talk about running, lifting, biking for 30 minutes and then Facebook or, Google for 5 minutes and then get the referral that way.
No, it's a really, really good point. And, part of this at the end of the day, like you want to be like a good person about the whole thing. And I sometimes find like when people talk about networking, they make it into such a, kind of a weird thing where it's like we're just introducing ourselves to each other. But what I like about what you were mentioning, and I think it's very true, is like when you can find that common ground with something, don't look at it as like I'm networking with this person, I'm looking for a referral. Have a genuine interest in like having like a friendship. Maybe a friendship's going to blossom there, or just a good conversation. And I think having that mindset makes you a lot more genuine with your intentions and will make the conversation a lot more productive. Because like you said, you're going to build much better rapport that way.
A lot of people out there, though, the tides have turned a little bit because people are so over the top, like, you got to add value to people. A lot of people are scared to even ask. So if you don't ask at all, you're not going to get anything. So
that's true.
Definitely don't be scared to ask. It's a numbers game at the end of the day if you ask a bunch of people. But the main thing is, like, how can you help that person, or how can you at least form a friendship with them? Like, what can you do to improve that person's life? And show that before you ever go in and say, hey, also, by the way, this is, I need a referral. Like,
Yeah.
that would be huge.
Absolutely. And on the other side of it too, like, I think this is like pretty getting more and more common, but like, I've always really admired people who, believe in the principle of like pay it forward or, give back. And so like on the other end of it, and like I said, I think it's becoming more common. You will find a lot of people who genuinely are just interested in helping, like, especially once you find that common ground, they're going to be like, hey, yeah, I was a Buckeye just like you, or whatever your common ground is. They're willing to help. And when you receive the help from them, hopefully, everyone
you pass it
exactly.
along.
I think that's such an awesome mentality to have. And it makes you feel less like you're using folks, because it's like, nope, I'm here to, they're investing in me so I can invest in someone else, which really furthers their investment. Like, you have the chance to make their investment in you exponential, and it has that whole compounding interest effect where like, like we have this, I'm probably going to butcher the translation, but it's like there's a term in Arabic of, it's called like sadaqah jariyah is what it says. And it's like when you donate to a cause that can, affect more people at scale. So like you build a well or something. It's like you get that reward for not just like a one-time transaction, but it's like a continued effect. And I think that's a good way to live your life.
And I think to that point, people who have an abundant mindset in general, they want to help someone who they think will go on to help other people. So again, not being afraid to ask, and like, if you are that person that has been helped, or even if you're not, always be on the lookout to help someone else if you have the chance to.
For sure.
Okay, so those were two. One was coding questions, referral. Was there anything else that like was really stand out for you?
I would say those are probably the main things. And I think the last thing is just touching on what I said before and what you mentioned just a bit ago. It is a numbers game, and it's really easy with the job search process of just feeling kind of defeated about all the rejections you're going to get. Like for the Tesla internship, it was like, I felt like I was like a pretty good candidate and like a good student and everything, but I didn't land that internship all the way until March of the summer before, when most kids were like had their internships well in advance and they knew where they were going to work. So my point is like, I was in that position where I was like, okay, even for the local companies, like forget tech companies, like local companies in the area wouldn't respond to me. I'd get rejections. And I was like, what's going on here? And it's really easy to like kind of feel down about that. But just, having that grit and perseverance and knowing like the more you try, your probability of success is directly correlated with that is like the last thing I'd say.
Yeah. And I think standing out is really important. One of the things that had helped you stand out, and I think people really like get weird about job interviews, and so they try to like put themselves in a box and become this package robot of, I think my employer will like this.
Yeah.
And the one thing that's distinctly different I know about you is like going into these job interviews and stuff, you have a bunch of experiences that are non-related to jobs that show that you have skill and talent. So me as well, like when I was interviewing at Oracle, it was literally like two phone interviews and I got the offer. But a lot of that was because I had a whole bunch of weird stuff on my resume that made me seem like, oh, this person does a lot of stuff outside of this type of work, but he has experience to show that he's a capable human being.
Yeah.
Like, so for you, you guys talked about like, oh yeah, by the way, I made this app. It's on the App Store. It's a game that does this, this, and this.
Yeah.
I feel like those types of experiences and things that are non-work related are what make you stand out in that interview.
Yeah. I mean, that is a good point. Like in college, I tried really hard. Like we started a business. I made an app for fun, like you said, put it on the App Store. Like the more little things you can do to make yourself stick out, like you said, is key. And that one other thing that came to mind is like, don't be afraid to talk yourself up. Like actually one of the reasons I didn't get an offer from Facebook initially, the feedback I got from the recruiter was they said, when you spoke to the hiring manager, you always said we, like any of your achievements, you were like, we did X, Y, and Z. We, made an app. We started a business, and it's true. Like a lot of stuff was team effort, but her advice to me was like, in a job interview, use the word I. Like as painful as it might be, you need to show what your contributions are. You're there to like advertise yourself, and so I think some people might struggle with that. I know it's something I struggled with.
Yeah, I mean, you're super humble, and you never like you're the type of person that like you would never want to brag unless it's about ping pong or foosball.
Yeah, I brag a lot about things.
But that's the thing. So when you initially came back, I don't even know. I think we talked about it beforehand. I was like, I can't remember what it was, but we had talked about it. I was like, you need to be like way less humble about it.
Yeah. So that's like an important thing also is like, obviously, like I think in life, trying not to be arrogant is like a really good thing. But absolutely. In these settings, you got to go for it. You really do.
Yeah.
And I remember the conversation because I was telling you about it before, like, because we always talk. We had like a good relationships of, when talking about like things we're dealing with and stuff. So I remember telling you about like the reason I got rejected the first time. And then you reminded me, you're like, yeah, make sure to go in there, be confident. and it really, it probably is one of the key things that made a difference.
Yeah. I think too, like, it all comes down to like self-awareness. Like you do a lot of this stuff in terms of like being humble, being super kind, all that's out of self-awareness, and you want to be a good person to other people. Like that, it doesn't change the fact that you're humble and a good person. Yeah. If in an interview you're confident and out, like you can change your persona, your ego, if you will, a little bit to suit different situations. Like we tell our sales guys, like, Nate will tell you this too. Nate's one of our other friends, but we have everybody like assume a completely different personality for when they go on sales calls and stuff. Okay. So everybody like on Slack, they'll have like their pictures as like Nate's is like David Goggins, Daniel's is like this guy from I think Billions is the show or something, and then there's like Wolf of Wall Street guy. There's like Tony Stark, like these confident personalities because like. At the end of the day, all of the top performers in any industry, whether it's sports, athletics, like Kobe had the Mamba mentality. Beyonce goes on stage and literally becomes a different person. Yeah. They talk about this in their interviews. They're like, when I go on there, I have to change. Like day to day, I'm this person. Yeah. But then when I go out to perform, I flip the switch and I try to turn on this other ego, this other side of me. And what they're talking about is they're just putting themselves into a frame to perform at their best. And like, they want to think like these certain things about themselves, or they want to act a certain way. So I think that's actually really, really important for interviewing. Yeah. It's like, maybe you're shy, or maybe you're humble, or maybe you're a certain way, but during that specific time, you need to present a certain way of yourself that shows that you're capable of performing well. Yeah.
No, I think that's like phenomenal advice. Just, it really allows you to overcome the things that maybe are holding you back a little bit.
Right.
You can transform into someone, like it gives you like a complete clean slate to be like, I'm not the guy who has these flaws per se, even though they're not really flaws, just things you want to be better at. You're no longer that person. You're now like, you've reinvented yourself. So I think that makes total sense. And you talked about that a lot. I think like, so one of the cool things I always enjoy talking to you about is, like your like physical tests, is what I call it. Yeah. Like the 100-mile run. I mean, you did a marathon leading up to that, and then it shifted in the 100-mile run. And I believe that's kind of what you mentioned.
Yeah.
Push
you, right? It actually, like, to a certain degree, like, I physically feel different. Like, there are times when I'll literally get goosebumps based on my thoughts, or like based on certain things. And like those goosebumps that I get, like, let's say I'm on a run, for example. Yeah. And it's like an 8-9 mile run, and I just get into this like crazy mentality, like I'm this different person. And David Goggins has talked about that too. where you get into like a different zone. People call it flow state and all that different stuff. I think it's different for physical stuff than it is for like creative stuff. But anyway, in terms of the physical stuff, if I'm pretending like I'm a different beast, like a different person in total, I literally, my body will get the chills if I'm doing it the right way. Like if I'm really in that mentality, I will get chills that like run down my spine, and I like can't feel pain for that period of time. It's so weird. Like I'll literally get chills. It only lasts for like little bursts, but the mentality stays the whole time. But I'll sometimes legitimately get these little bursts of chills where I'll be like I can handle more pain at that time. It's not that I don't feel it, but I can handle more pain at that time. So it's a weird, it's definitely stemming from some type of mentality. But I do the same thing if it's in terms of like a sales call, or if it's in terms of like whatever it is. If I'm in a situation where I have to perform, sometimes it doesn't work. Like sometimes I can't get into that mode and I won't perform well. But if I do get into that mode, that's when I perform like extraordinary compared to my regular capabilities. There's an extra level, like there's an extra mode that is like that. If you can tap into that, it's huge.
No, I think when you can tap into that, it's like you're really harnessing that untapped potential, which like every like human being has, but not everyone knows how to harness it, you know, like and I think that's like a great technique to
it's hard to tell that. Like how do you actually do that, like
which it probably comes from practice. Like you've put yourself in so many situations that have enabled you to become better at that skill. You know what I mean?
And actually the times when I have like felt it the most are times that don't matter at all. Like there's zero like it's like when I'm just on a 8-mile run or a 5-mile run for no reason and there's nobody around. Like that's when I'll feel the best for some reason. But I do think you're right. I think part of it's practice, but a lot of it is like, it is the way you're thinking and your thoughts. And like the only way you can really get better at like thinking good thoughts is by like becoming a little bit more self-aware. And the only thing that helps me do that is by meditating and doing the things that, you know, even if you're not meditating, just like checking in the middle of the day, like random times, like what am I feeling? What am I thinking? You know, where am I trying to go here? Like, what are my, just kind of reminding yourself of like what you want.
How often in a day do you do these check-ins? Like for a lot of people, what I hear for meditation is it's like a once a day thing maybe, but like, is there benefit to kind of like maybe having checkpoints throughout the day? Or
that's a good question. For me personally, I meditate in the mornings always, and then I'm pretty aware at night times too. The middle parts of the days definitely get foggy at different points. And I don't have like set checkpoints where I'm like, oh, I should probably check in on what am I thinking? Like, what's my mentality? It's more like a habit of like, the more aware you start to become, it's like a snowball effect. It's like, once you do start meditating more and more and more and more, and you're like at nighttime, maybe before bed, you're like just trying to be super present and conscious. It's a snowball effect. Cause then randomly in the middle of the day, like let's say I do something, I'm training for something, something's not going my way, it'll snap me back. Like if some level of emotion either spikes or goes too low, it'll snap me back and I'll be like, oh, what is going, it'll like trigger me. So for me, it's like an emotional thing. It's like, if all of a sudden I'm feeling like really up or really down, it'll trigger like a self-awareness where I'm like, oh, what am I thinking right now? Like what is going on?
I think this is something that would be really interesting to like pilot as part of like curriculums in schools, like because like you remember, like obviously it's not like that long ago that but I'm thinking more like high school and middle school, like when your day can change so dramatically because you switch classes, right? And there might be like a class you really like or a class you don't like, and you're interacting with your friends, but some aren't your friends, and like, you know, kids go through so much like different stuff throughout the day. And I feel like you just kind of like, if you're having a bad day, it's kind of like you just power through until you go home on the bus and the day's over. But it would be kind of interesting just to like bake into the school day, like times for people to just relax, you know, like as part of their day, like between classes, like maybe have students like maybe give extra time between
Like a
certain
reset
periods.
button.
Yeah, exactly. Like where you can just be like, and kids can do what they want. I mean, like I think for some kids, it's probably like, they may end up just like going on their phone or
Yeah,
something,
true.
but that's where I think like teaching them skills to find peace and contentment and just like being kind of alone with your thoughts is like honestly like a pretty valuable skill to learn.
Crazy valuable.
So I feel like that could be like kind of interesting.
You also have to be like open to it though in a weird way. Like some people are like really not into it, and like, I mean, it is time consuming and stuff. So like if you're not into meditating or you're not into that type of stuff, it's weird because like you don't like once you get into it and you like you feel the benefits of it, or you understand like, oh my gosh, this is really benefiting my life and I'm feeling a lot better, I'm doing a lot better, then it's a no-brainer for you. But like for me in high school, like I was just like a zombie pretty much.
No, exactly. Like that's I think like you said that it's like the more you do it and then you can see the value in it, that's where it can become really impactful. So I think just like educating people on it earlier, and hopefully it wouldn't necessarily be a controversial thing either, because it's like a lot of, I'm sure there's much more advanced meditation techniques, but if you boil it down even to simple stuff like breathing exercises and stuff like that, like a lot of that is stuff that's already backed, like it's very backed up with science in terms of like it's stuff that psychologists and therapists will advise their clients to do to cope with stress. So I think it could be like an interesting thing. I think there's so many opportunities like to teach new skills in the education system.
Oh, dude, an incredible amount.
Yeah.
Like but at the same time, the weirdest part is like once like you realize that you're capable of learning new things. I don't know what the right word is. Like obviously you go to high school and you're learning stuff. People are like force feeding you information.
Yeah.
But there, like for me, there was a distinct moment of my freshman year of college or my sophomore year of college. It was like in between that period of time. I think it was the summer from freshman to sophomore year, where I read a book, and it was the first book I had picked up and read since, I don't know, high school, when they were forcing us to read something.
Yeah.
First real book, like just a regular nonfiction book. I think it was How to Win Friends and Influence People or something like that. Dude, it was like one of the ones that people were like, hey, this is a absolute classic.
Yeah.
That book actually is incredible. But anyway, it was like one of those books where everyone's like, yeah, just read this book. It was like a self-development type book. And I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. So I read the book, and obviously the book was incredible. But the thing that really like flipped a switch for me was when I put the book down, I was like, oh my God, people, like, you can just read stuff and get better at life.
Yeah.
And like when I realized that, I was like, holy crap, like you can just improve on your life. And I didn't have like a really strong realization of that until that point. Obviously I knew like I was consistent working out, and I was, playing football, trying to get better at football, but I didn't realize the level of which you could change your life until I read that book. And I was like, these ideas that are in my head, I could become like a way bigger potential person in my lifetime. Yeah. And I think kids in high school, a lot of them don't have that realization. And I think the realization comes to people at different points. Like, did you ever have a moment where you were like, oh my God, I should probably be like working on myself?
Yeah, I think, well, so it didn't come as organically as kind of like what you described of finding the book and kind of having like that realization in that instance. I think a lot of it is attributed to that saying that's like, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I would say, I mean, in college, me and you spent a ton of, I probably, outside of my roommate, Chris, great guy,
Shout out Chris.
Yeah. I mean, you were definitely like one of the top, people I spent the most time with. And we, throughout like our upbringing, like one of the things we probably are really fortunate to have had happen is like, our friend group has had a lot of like optimistic, positive growth mindset type of people.
Very true.
And so for me, I genuinely think I wouldn't have like become more open-minded to like, the benefits of a growth mindset had I not had friends, and my family's really supportive too. But that was like the catalyst for me, the company I was with.
That is actually so true. And this is like a weird thing, but even back in high school, like I was always, and I feel like you were doing this too. You were always like, we're always friends with everybody, right? Like obviously like we're
hopefully people,
no, I'm not saying like from like a popularity sound. I'm talking about like we're friendly to everybody, like giving everybody, like being kind to everybody.
Yeah.
However, we like almost distinctly knew which people to be around and which people to actually hang around and which people to not hang around as much because of the principle you just said. Like for some reason I knew, I was like, Muzz is super smart. He's very likable. He's super, like, we have a lot of things in common.
Yeah.
We both like ping pong, like random stuff. And I was like, he's somebody I like absolutely have to be around. Like Nick Olmstead and like Matt and just like there's the people that I like specifically chose. I was like, I know for a fact, like for some reason I knew right then, I was like, this person's going to be successful. This person's going to be successful. This person's going to be successful. And I would hang around the people, and then obviously like my close friends as well that I had grown up with. But I would specifically try to make relationships with the people that I was like, I think these are great people to be around. I think they're on a good trajectory.
Yeah. No, I think it's a super, super important thing to think about in life, especially like when you're younger. And like, I think like, high school and college are pretty formative years where like college, especially because you suddenly have this opportunity to meet so many new people. And
you're like an adult.
Yeah. And you kind of have some decisions to make about like, okay, like suddenly I have this opportunity to meet people like who have so many different interests. Like, some people are gonna like focus more on, things like, whether it be like starting a business or they're really focused on school. And then you have other folks who like, want to like make the most of their 4 years in terms of like
party
enjoyment and stuff like that. And I do think it's important to strike a balance there too. Like, there's some people who go too far in the opposite direction where they isolate themselves so much so to the point where they're like, oh, I'm not going to be friends with anyone who like isn't just grinding constantly or like,
those people are annoying too.
Exactly. and you actually like, I like genuinely can't think of an example of anyone who's like that level of judgmental who I've seen, attain a level of something I would consider successful, because then you lose that balance of like appreciating the friends who are going to like help you relax, help you like just have a good, good time and things like that. And so, but to your point, always be mindful of that balance. And I think like your primary folks should be people who aren't gonna bring you down. And at the worst, even if they're not like, worst case scenario, even if they're not going to actively like participate in all of the endeavors you have, they won't discourage you. The biggest poison you can have is like folks who try and actively pull you out of making yourself a better person, which is more common than you
it's for sure, because people don't want to see other people change, because people just don't like change. And the people that are, like for example, if we were doing a bunch of bad stuff together in high school, and then all of a sudden I tried to get my life together and like was trying to do a bunch of other stuff, you're gonna be like, oh dude, you changed, you did X, Y, and Z, like, and you're going to want me to be with you. It's like misery loves company type thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And to a certain degree, like people just want to be with other people. And if someone has really low energy, they're doing really shitty stuff, they just want to have other friends that are in the same boat as them, because they feel bonded because they're both going through certain situations together. So that is super, super important.
And like you do want to be there for those people as well. Like I think it's like really important to, like I said, like I just think it's never a good thing, like if you're a good person, to like turn your back to a friendship ever, like,
or judge them.
Exactly. And so like I guess the main point is just like you were saying before, always like try and establish good relationships and friendships with everyone, but then keep your like inner circle, folks that are gonna like I said, at the very least, encourage you to keep moving forward, and will never like actively try and bring you down.
Yeah, I mean, the same way there's the negative person who's trying to pull down the positive person. There's also, the positive person who thinks they're grinding now, that acts like holier than everybody else. Like, I'm so much better than you because you're not, because you're partying or doing this. When and most of the time, those people are people who just recently stopped doing the other side, and then now they're acting like they're so much better than everybody else. The people that act like better than other people or are judging really hard against the other side, like that's a huge red flag, because like it's really judgment overall. Judgment is the judgment like of saying someone's better than you, someone's worse than you. That's like where like the poison stems from. Is like treating people like they're different, like they're way worse or way better. Either way, really.
Yeah, exactly. And exactly, like if you don't have that judgment, then you'll naturally like just you'll figure it out on your own, like you'll end up just naturally spending time with the right people, and you'll still have like a good variety of people when you're looking to like diversify the things that you do on a day-to-day level.
So okay, so me and you sometimes we have intellectual conversations, we have business conversations, we have random conversations, we have girl conversations, we have whatever it's about. For the last little piece of this, I want to know what your opinion is on aliens. And I don't think I actually don't know. I think I've talked to you about aliens maybe once, but I don't know your full scope opinion on it.
Yeah.
One, do you believe in aliens? And then the second question is, do you believe they've visited Earth? Like those are the two, and then we'll kind of go from there. But I'm curious, do you believe in aliens, and have they visited Earth?
So the first question, yes, I definitely believe in them. I think given this vast size of the universe, and by the way, if like you ever want to humble yourself, like just look up one of those videos that show how small Earth is and the grand scheme of the universe. Like when you look like from a probability standpoint, if the universe is that large, like come on, do you really think like we're the only life that exists?
I can't even. That was just a question just to get started, because if you were a no, I was gonna argue and debate the shit out of you.
Take me out of the apartment, probably.
There's literally a astronaut on the wall.
So the answer is yes there. And then have they visited Earth is another really interesting question. I think, again, when you look at like probability, probably, because if there's other life out there, and like I think a lot of people share this theory, but if there's other life out there, it's probably not just us and someone else. It's probably us and like thousands of millions, whatever, of people. And then at that point, do you really think we're the most intelligent species? Probably not, because if we're one out of millions, the likelihood of us being the smartest not too high. I think someone else is probably smarter, and it could have easily visited.
Wait, is smarter the right term, or do you mean further ahead in time, aka more advanced? Because if we're talking about the universe and the way like it expands, aka going for like if you were to go through the universe on like the expansion level, like let's say you're like they would theoretically be, wouldn't they be theoretically coming back? Like let's say they're further out in the universe. That's the right term that I'm trying to use here. If we're using like the Big Bang Theory, and which I don't think is super accurate, but let's just pretend real quick. If we're using the Big Bang Theory and everything's expanding out at I think it's a slower rate or whatever, they would technically, let's say they're on the further out in the universe, and they're coming backward, like more towards the center.
Okay.
Would they be coming backwards in time, or how does that work? But basically the reason I'm asking that is because are they there? Do you think there's other species that are smarter, or do you think there's other species that are just further ahead in time?
Yeah, it's a really, really good question.
Obviously,
we'll have to call our buddy Neil deGrasse Tyson up. Get him on the podcast.
I think he's like anti-alien or something. I don't know.
Oh, really? That'd be
But I don't know. I don't know what his stance is. I actually shouldn't say that. I have no idea. But
yeah,
he's very logical. So
he is. He's like, when I think astronomy, I think of him. Or He's like probably the top. At least well known.
Yeah.
But anyway, I honestly, that's a really good question that I have no idea.
Wait, I mean, if you were to have to guess, smarter or just further ahead in time? Or both. I mean, it really could be both.
I'm leaning towards smarter because again, I think you can conceptualize that a little bit more easily. Like it's very easy to think versus like the time, the traveling through time. It's really simple to just think, okay, if we're one population or one species out of a million, there's got to be smarter ones out there, and probably exponentially. I mean, when you talk about, again, the vast size of the universe, there probably could be significantly smarter. And when you look at the strides we've made, like
in just 20 years,
exactly. Like,
but that's what I mean. If we've made this much advancement in this a little bit of period of, let's say, 20 years, the people that are further ahead in time, quote unquote, would be light years more intelligent, technically.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. But it almost is like okay. So if they're ahead in time, and then we assume we probably can assume they've learned lessons that we haven't, have wisdom that we haven't, yet tapped.
Right.
So then, is it a moral dilemma, the fact that they haven't come here and advised us on, are they really crappy?
Have you not seen the news recently? Apparently, according to the Israeli, like the head of the Israeli Space Administration, there's what's called a galactic federation that is literally in contact with certain I guess parts of the government or something like that is what he was saying. And he was saying that they were advised to not release it to the public yet because they were. So this was like a New York Times article. This was like a big thing. This is why I asked the question.
Yeah.
Like this has all come out in like the past, and then obviously the.
Okay, wait. Which countries were? So it was Israel and.
This was the Israeli. This was the head of the Israeli space. Something to do with space.
But so they're the
he has a PhD. He's like a legitimate.
Well, the only reason I ask is like it's fascinating. Like, okay, if aliens come down here, like who, like how did they choose who they're gonna communicate with? Like, it's just interesting. Like, Israel's like an interesting example because like perhaps if I were an alien, I would think this might be the capital of the world in the sense of like you have Jerusalem there, which is like home of the top 3 religions,
or like the pyramids. You're like, oh, that probably looks like
because Egypt's not too far. Yeah, the Middle East in general is like a fascinating place just because of like how much history and like impact it's had on.
But wouldn't they just be watching us?
Yeah, like my point is like why Israel, and then like. Okay, now let's say they did communicate.
No, they said they're talking. The Israeli guy said that they're in contact with all of the major.
Okay, so they did.
It wasn't like picking.
Okay, so it wasn't them.
No, it was. It's okay. It's actually you should definitely read this story because it's actually fascinating. The thing is like everybody's now saying like, holy, like, is this real? Like, is this real? And so, I mean, who knows? Obviously.
Yeah.
But definitely you should read that because the stuff that the guy says, like it's coming from like a really credible person, which is weird. Yeah. But it's not that weird because the Pentagon and a couple other things had released like evidence and proof that they've had UFOs just in the past 6 months. So the crazy thing, the question that I was going to get to is like, okay, if for example, let's say they're ahead in time. Like, let's say, like, evolution-wise, they're ahead in time. Mm-hmm. If an alien was ahead in time, what if they're, like, a more advanced version of us, And does that mean like what if aliens inside of UFOs, when they come back to Earth, they're traveling back in time? What if we are just them and aliens are just time traveling?
Yeah,
okay, no, that's a joke. I don't think that's probable, but it could be.
You're writing the script for the next Christopher Nolan movie.
That could work, right? Like, okay, aliens, the UFOs are time travel machines.
Yeah.
They get in their UFOs and then they travel back in time to Earth, and we are them at the earlier point in time. Boom.
Yeah. It's like that's how they cycle through.
Then they're trying to come back with lessons and like, hey, don't mess this up. Don't blow.
But if we're them, like this must be early on in the development process because we still screw up a ton of stuff as a species.
No, one thing I don't know. Obviously, that's just a joke, but like it's kind of fascinating idea. But anyway,
it's life is all about throwing out the crazy ideas, and sometimes
that's all right. That's my new. We're gonna write a movie about it, but no. What I was gonna say was like there's like in the folklore of UFOs, they always like they came around. Like most sightings came around when we were testing like the nuclear bombs. And like that's when like the biggest uprising in like UFO sightings, UFO crashes all came around right around that time.
Yeah.
Which is super weird. Like that would make the most sense by far. Like if they
were gonna warn us.
Yeah, like that would make the most sense ever. Like, hey guys, don't do that or something like that. But again, who knows? Like the other side of the story is like, okay, why all of a sudden right now, especially 2020, like the world's biggest shit show, why right now is the Pentagon, this Israeli space guy, why right now are they finally like, they've been hiding, if there were aliens, they've been hiding it for 50, 70, 100, who knows how many years, forever, and they all of a sudden decide 2020 that they're just going to come out and tell us about aliens. Like what
the timing is strange. I don't know. Yeah, it could be multiple reasons. Like, like you said, maybe we're now getting to a point where we're like, maybe they're testing the waters to how like the population and public, would perceive that. And
what do you think would happen if they were just, they kind of already, the Pentagon has said it and the Israeli space guy has said it, which doesn't really mean that they're real or they're not real, but like what do you think would happen? Like what do you think people would think if like they were real, like they were just out here like flying around and stuff?
You probably
would it be like panic?
They I don't know, like I think, well, first people would probably hope that like the Avengers really exist. Like the government calls them up, like, oh, they've been here the whole time. That it's like really becomes like a movie setting.
Like literally.
I honestly think, as crazy as this may sound, is like if people aren't in imminent danger, like if it's just like one representative, and we have this sort of sense that with our military and our intelligence, whatever you want to call it, we can they're not a threat and we can like keep ourselves safe. There's a huge chunk of the population I could totally see just being like, this was news of any other day, as crazy as that sounds, because things have just become so crazy where we are like,
2020 put us at that level.
Not just 2020, but just like this is like society in general. Like we're so like apathetic about a lot of things. Like people are like very consumed with their own lives. Like the biggest example is true. Like
myself included.
Yeah, and no, but sometimes it's good to like insulate yourself from like things going on. But like a really good example is like when Snowden, revealed everything he revealed about like the government tracking and stuff. Regardless of exactly. Like regardless, like with Snowden, I'll continue to use him as an example. Like regardless of whether you felt what he did was right or wrong, it was like pretty groundbreaking, like shocking stuff at the time, just to know how powerful technology had become in its ability to track us and how much the government could tap into that. And the guy, when, again, whether you think it's right or wrong, when he revealed it, I mean, it's pretty, most likely he was probably thinking,
this is going to be
this
crazy.
is huge. Like no one's going to, like, I could get in serious trouble for this, but I'll go down like with the support of the general public because I just gave them such valuable information. Yeah. Now it's like, I mean,
didn't really work.
People literally were kind of just like, wow, that's kind of messed up, or like,
like a small percentage were like the real support.
Exactly, but the vast majority was just kind of like whatever. And I think like so much of that
we're all
type
zombies
of stuff.
Out here.
Exactly, like I'm still like, aliens are, it's pretty big. It's like on another level. Like if it really was confirmed, I think it probably would make bigger news. But I guess what I'm saying is like, I don't think it would like last super long. I think
I actually kind of agree with you on that.
Just flow past.
Like it's really exciting for me because I like alien. Like I like I'm a big into like the movie side of things. Like I like that type of stuff. But like even I guess you're right. The lasting effect of it would be like, oh, it kind of like for me, like, oh, I kind of thought that. Like, cool, it's been confirmed or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people would be like, the only people who would really shock is like the real hard non-believers. Real hard non-believers.
And there's always going to be those like niche groups of people who are like really on both sides. Some who are believers and are super fascinated, and then there's non-believers who are like, "Come on, this is a hoax." But like, it's just weird. Like we are at a point in the world where I think like unless you're like in imminent danger, like. I think, like, for example, like COVID wasn't even like a concern to people like at the level that, you know, with government intervention, like governments, like, you know, it was like happening in China. And I remember like thinking of myself when I first heard about the outbreak. I would have never believed the world transitioned to where it was today with like lockdowns and masks and all that stuff, because I just thought, oh, this is like some random thing that's going on in China.
I was thinking this. I thought like, oh, it'll be like any of the bird flu or the swine flu or, you know, the things that everyone's like, oh, this is the crazy flu this year.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I agree. I didn't think it was going to get to the level that it got.
Like we, at my old job, they even did like a disaster recovery like plan for like, okay, how do we operate the business in case of like,
almost like
tough circumstances. I thought it was like, wait, what'd you say?
It's almost like they knew.
It's like, I mean, who knows?
Huntington.
Yeah, they're pretty powerful folks over there. But I remember thinking this is such a dumb exercise. It's like a classic corporate check the box exercise that we did this. And then things like escalated pretty quick. And like, I mean, so the reason I bring this example up is just because like, it was kind of like at the time when it was happening in China, like I think it was like it was like a serious thing happening over there. But like until it kind of, you realized, oh, it's going to hit, you know, the Western hemisphere as well. And then you know, the public started to feel like, you know, there's an imminent threat here. Then they like started to care about it. But if it just like remained over there somehow only, like even for as like crazy as it is, I just think a lot of people would have, I don't know, people live in their own bubble.
Yeah, I agree. I think like one of the weirdest things ever to me was, and not to bring back up the Epstein side and all that, but that was like, that was one of those moments because when the Epstein case was like released or whatever, I wasn't paying any attention, didn't care at all. And then someone filled me in. I was like, oh, okay. I watched like a video on like what it was that he did, like the whole pedophile ring in an island. Like literally think about it. Someone was like, hey, there's a guy who has this island where they do pedophilia. They fly all these really powerful people there. Like it sounds crazy.
Yeah.
It sounds like a movie.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I had heard that, and I heard he like got convicted and was in jail. And so I had heard all that, and then 2 days later, he killed himself in jail. So when that moment happened for me, like having had just learned about it and seeing that happen, I was mind blown. Like I was sitting there and I was like, I was like, I better start questioning everything. Like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
But the reason I say that is like, that happened and it was like a 1-2 day thing. And I thought it was crazy. And a couple other people thought it was kind of crazy that I was like in my circle, at least obviously people on the internet thought it was crazy and whatever. And they made like some shows about it and stuff. But to your point, it was the same thing as Snowden where like, I thought it was going to be crazy, but it was just like, it was just brushed on like anything else. And, and like people, you ask them now, like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
like,
it's unfortunate, like the power of it's like a combination of like obviously social media and then like the traditional media to like, and like politicians do this really effectively too, where like it's always what's the next story.
Yeah, like what?
So it distracts people.
I was just gonna say that. I was like the length of the maybe they have a high emotion when they hit, but the length of these big hitter stories and these big things is really dependent. You're right on what are people pushing out media wise, because like COVID is still a big thing.
Yeah.
So I guess we're kind of wrong in a sense, because the Snowden thing was gone, the Epstein thing was gone, COVID was huge. It's still around.
Yeah.
And then it almost depends, like you said, on the news cycles. So in like mainstream media and what people are talking about.
Yeah.
So it feels, it almost feels like, okay, so aliens, for example, if aliens were around, it would probably be dependent on how much focus there was from like a media and attention aspect on them. Because to my point earlier, when I told you like, hey, the Pentagon released that there were UFOs.
Yeah.
Like they literally came out with a statement and said that we have a program. Yes, we have UFOs. Or we found UFOs, whatever it was that they said. And then this Israeli guy came out to New York Times and all this. That stuff, like it came out, went away. No one really talks about it.
Yeah.
And so I think it would be dependent, like you said, on like level of like attention on that.
Yeah, exactly. And just like how quickly is the next story popping up? Like,
and is it about aliens or is it not?
Yeah. Like some people use that like super effectively to, you know, like maintain their brand, or like some people do it to stay relevant. So like a good example is like Kanye West, like, you know, like, and who knows whether it's intentional or not, but like he always will say some outlandish thing and it's like that keeps him in news cycles.
In the media. Yeah.
Exactly. And then other people like are able to come back from like, I don't know, like it's like, you know, like we live in this society of like cancel culture. Sometimes it's warranted, sometimes it's not. But like there are people who have like come back from like they've escaped cancel culture because they've just done something else that's like really like kind of crazy. And if you do it enough times, it's almost like
forget the other
thing, and people they begin actually gravitating to you because they like love the entertainment or whatever you're providing.
A perfect example is Logan Paul.
Oh my God, yes.
No, remember he had like
in Japan.
He had that Japan thing, which like so he had that, and the internet was like freaking out about it or whatever. But he instantly started, like he did the boxing thing, and then he did another big boxing thing, and then he had his podcast, and he had whatever else he had. People like love him now, like on the internet again.
Such a good example.
Like he is like, he's killing it, like straight killing it. And honestly, I feel like that is kind of like, I think that's actually a good thing. Like you should be able to get a second chance. You should be able to like,
depending on
the level. Like Epstein, you're out.
Exactly.
But that's the problem is Epstein, like Logan Paul's media attention was probably the same amount as that dude. Like it should, the weight that is put on these different things doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like let's say, for example, like the Epstein thing got like tons of press over and over and over. Like no one really knows how this guy died. Like who killed this guy? Who killed that guy?
Yeah.
We still haven't figured out who knows anything about.
And the amount
Les
of
Wexner is
pictures
at Ohio State.
Yeah.
Les Wexner is the guy that donated all the money to our school that we went to. Lives in Ohio. He owns Victoria's Secret, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And Epstein just lives in his house for like $1 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
That's mind blowing. And where is he today? Like, who is asking these questions? Like, but besides the point, like Logan Paul's a great example of a person that literally he got canceled by the the media, for
Yeah,
example,
yeah.
but then also is loved by the media right now. Like people,
Yeah.
he's about to fight Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah,
Like,
that's crazy. I mean, yeah, we
it's
just
a no
have,
lose situation.
we have
for
like
him.
short attention spans or something when it comes to the news, and I mean, yeah, it's just like it's really fascinating, and I think like society's just trending in that direction. In general, like as human beings, we have shorter attention spans.
Mhm.
Like this, like not even just talking about the news cycles, but just like because you're like constantly fed content on your phone.
Mhm.
Like there's so much content to absorb. Like
Yeah,
I
it's
can't even
rough.
remember like sometimes like at the start of the day you don't even remember the posts you saw like at the end of the day. Like if you
Yeah.
like what I mean is like if I want to go back and find something like,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, that was funny.
You're like,
and I
oh
forgot.
god.
Yeah, like either
scrolling
you
for 5
scroll,
minutes.
but like in theory you should be able to like search for it somehow, or like
Remember it.
no, yeah, exactly. But it's just like, yeah, in general we have like pretty short attention spans. But
we never answered the question. Or you never answered the question. Do you think aliens have visited Earth? You believe in them? You think they're smarter than us, but have they visited Earth?
yeah, I'd say so. Again,
It's hard to tell.
like even think about things we still can't explain, like the pyramids,
Mhm.
and like I don't know, like I feel like people say that about a lot of stuff related to the Mayans and things
Yeah.
like that. And so like there's like still stuff that to this day we like can't fully explain. And I feel like we haven't had that recently.
I know. Do you
Yeah.
think they're like what do you, in terms of like species wise, do you think they're like those green looking things from the movies, like with the big heads, big eyes, or I mean, yeah, big head, big eyes, like small bodies? Or do you think they're like probably completely different? A lot of the stuff in the movies makes pretty decent sense. Like if you were to think, like if I were to think about like what an alien would look like, you'd be like, oh well, the reason they have a bigger head is because they're smarter.
Yeah, like
but then you think like, oh, they don't need physical like assertion because they have so much intelligence, or I don't know. But what would you say that they would look like?
So yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is like it probably comes down to like I'm assuming they're more evolved than us,
Mhm.
and so then it comes down to like what physical traits do they have that would like enable them to have like better survival, which may not necessarily be true. Like because like for humans, we're definitely not the species even on Earth that could like win in a like fight, with
Exactly.
like a bear.
Could you beat an alien
unless
in a
you're
fight?
Khabib, you could be a bear, but
That's true. Khabib's a beast.
but we're the most powerful because of like the brain, like the intelligence we have.
Yeah.
So like it's probably maybe the same for them,
thing.
or maybe they're like some super species that's a combination of like
They're just
a
jacked.
tiger and like they have a human brain, or I don't but like
could you be an alien in a fight? Like based on what you think they look like, do you think you'd win in a fight?
Okay,
like
based on what they look like, if
they
look like E.T., yeah.
What is that? What you think they look like?
To an extent, yeah, because that's the only thing I can like, visualize.
Okay.
But like going back to what I said before, I'm assuming they're more evolved than us. So no, I don't think I'd.
Well, no, I'm saying fist. Like you're in the ring, fist fight. They can't use any of the no technology
weapons
on
and stuff. Let's say, yeah, I'll root for the humans, and I have faith in us. But
I actually agree. I think.
But a quick question for you is like, why would they be so keen on visiting Earth? Like, aside from giving us messages from like maybe a moral standpoint, and they're trying to help us out, I'm assuming their society is like, so it would be like, would you want to go back to like?
Fuck yes.
You would.
Okay. I see. I think I know where this question's going. If you were like, okay, think about our society right now.
Uh-huh.
If somebody told you that there's another society that's doing pretty well, they're not quite on our level. It'd be like this. It'd be like Planet of the Apes.
Okay.
People think the Planet of the Apes movie is like crazy. Like there's a whole nother society being run in a completely different way, and you could just go inspect it, like watch it.
Yeah,
we watch animals all the time.
That's a great point. That is a good
People
point.
go to zoos for God's sake.
That's true. This assumes that like it's like it's safe, and they're at a point where like there's not much risk for them to like if it's like an expedition for them.
Well, I think we are pretty risky to them. Like I think they're probably like, way more advanced than us. Like if they're here or they're around, I think they're probably way more advanced, obviously, or else they couldn't be here. But what I'm saying is like, they're probably also thinking like, because we're less intelligent, we're probably a bigger threat of like doing something stupid, like trying to hit them with a bomb.
True. But it could also be things
or
like you never, when you're in a new society, like for example, like you're going to be traveling to India here pretty soon. Like it's so fascinating. Like the locals over there can like eat anything they want. Like they just have like such better immune systems, or I don't even know what it is, than us. Like when you go there, you'll see like it takes a while to like get used to the food and stuff.
God.
And I'm not talking about spicy stuff. I'm just talking about like probably the different like exposure to different like germs and stuff like that, which like now with an alien, it's like that's a weird risk, honestly. Like they don't know the type of things in our microscopic things in our environment that could like literally kill them,
or like they come across like but that's why I think they're just like, if they're here, they're clearly not walking around and doing, like they're clearly just like watching. Like, like if you were able to be in a craft where you could just like,
unless they could disguise themselves really well, and
that would be epic. What if they're just around, just walking around?
Like they developed like shape shifting or something. Then there's the people also who believe like we're in a simulation, like none of this is really.
The Elon Muskers.
Yeah,
but that's actually like also a fair probability.
Yeah, because like if I like we talked about before, like I'm working with virtual reality, and like if you look at the strides that has made in such a short time span, then just think about it like exponentially. Like it could be so possible that like, I don't know, someone is just like, we're all pawns in someone's game.
Explain to me how crazy the VR is again. Like you were telling me that one time, like what's the craziest thing you're doing in VR?
Yeah, probably like there's a lot of cool things to try. The best thing to try is like, I'd say the scary stuff, because especially if you're
what's the planet? Remember the planet that you guys had built?
Oh, yeah. So we recently there's an app called Horizon, which it's pretty cool. I think right now it's still in beta, but like it's out there for like if you apply to get into the beta, you can. And so essentially it's kind of like a universe for creators and consumers is what we call it. And so you can create any world you want, and it could be like Clayville, and it has like Ohio State stuff. Obviously it has a great gym, and things like that. And you could visit me in Muzz Town, which is like ping pong and foosball, but my point is like, now people have the ability to create worlds, hang out with friends in those worlds, play games in those worlds, share experiences in those worlds. And it's like you walk around with an avatar.
So you can create stuff and you can go visit other people's worlds.
Exactly.
And what you were describing to me when you told me this is you said it's spatially accurate, meaning if me and you are walking around in VR, as you start to walk further away, I will no longer see or hear you, but you literally will be there and can walk around and talk to me again.
Yeah, the audio is it adjusts to your proximity to other people. So like as you're walking, as you venture further in the distance, your voice will like soften, and it's supposed to simulate real life as much as it can, aside from the fact that in current state no one has legs.
That's something you should work on for your product development.
Yeah. It's another fascinating thing though, is like we're so like, do you ever think about how like movies and TV like dictate so much of how we think, and like even in VR where you have the potential to represent yourself in any way. Like if I was like, I don't want to look like a human, I could be anything I want in VR. Yet what we decided to do is just make avatars that look like humans. Like you just try like
weird.
Our basis is like always replicating what you're familiar with in the real world. But then when you're actually in the real world, like societal norms are like heavily influenced by like movies and TV shows, like just, you know, like how they show in movies, just like you know, like if you go on a date and then it's like, you know, someone's like, hey, do you want to come up for coffee or whatever, you know, that line, or, you know, things like that. It's like that's all it's all perpetuated from like you know, things that are depicted in movies. And
so
I don't know, that was a
no. I actually I know what you're saying. I've read, I can't remember where I heard this. I don't know if you've heard this too, but like people said like the best, or the thing that people like most in terms of like products and movies and all that stuff, is things that are familiar but surprising. So the two aspects is like it's a familiar surprise, like something that you know that you like, but it's like there's some surprise aspect to it. So like I'm trying to think of like a good example of it, but I mean, I'm sure there's movies and stuff that are like something that you know or something, but it's like a, you know. Yeah,
no, I see what you're saying, because like I guess if I'm thinking about it right, like everyone wants familiarity, because familiarity is your sense of security.
Yeah,
exactly.
Secure.
But then it also is what makes life boring. If things get too familiar. So it's like striking that balance somehow is like it's probably like, this isn't a great example, but like I know plenty of people who are like, I wouldn't go skydiving, but like they enjoy roller coasters or something, because like roller coasters give them more of a sense of security with the thrill of like.
You know what's weird? So I went skydiving, and I have had way more fun riding roller coasters at Cedar Point than I did have skydiving. And thrill level, level was more fun, more exciting on a roller coaster at Cedar Point than it was
skydiving.
But I did a non-tandem jump, so that could have like, I had like more stress involved with it. Like I was solo doing it and all that. But I stand by that. Like I thought roller coasters were more fun than skydiving.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, you won't find me on either. You know,
you live a very safe life.
I know. Me and you, like it's a nice little balance, you know.
It really is. Same with in terms of business stuff too. Like I'm always trying to push more on the risk side. You're always trying to pull back a little more. It is like it strikes a nice balance.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get you to do something crazy though at some point.
Yeah,
you would go skydiving.
I think I would if I was, obviously I would want I mean, you took training to do it
like if we went to Dubai and we had a sick tandem jump, we had it set up. I think
yeah, Dubai would be the place to do it. That'd be so cool.
They look awesome there.
Yeah, but yeah, no, this was good.
Yeah, this wrap it up here. I don't know how that was probably a good couple hours here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, obviously you're here, Muzz, until the end of, or you're here till like beginning of February.
Beginning of February, so we got about a month.
Yeah, so we'll get some more podcasts in, guys. This was Clay and Company episode 3, I believe, is what this one's gonna be. Yeah, thank you guys for listening, and we will see you in the next one. Muzz, do you have anything to say? Anything you want to tell them, or your social medias or anything like that?
No, I'll say follow this guy. He gives a lot of good tips.
Follow this guy right here.
You know,
Muzz, what's your Instagram at least?
My Instagram is @MuzzAhmed17. So if you're looking for a lot of wholesome content, you know, with my niece and nephew.
Better yet, what about like we don't have any. You don't have any products to promote or anything.
I've not, this is the takeaway from here. Next episode, I will have something to promote for you guys. So,
we'll get Muzz to plug something. But all right, guys, thank you for watching. We will see you next time. Boom.